They thought she was just another nobody. They were wrong. The sun beat down on the polished glass entrance of Sullivan Tactical Training Center, where recruits for one of the toughest SWAT teams in the country had gathered for orientation. Among the sea of athletic, buzz-cut men in standard-issue tactical gear, one figure stood out not because she demanded attention, but because she didn't. Erin Callahan, 36, wore the same training uniform, but somehow looked out of place. Her dark hair was tied back in a tight bun, and her olive skin was tanned from early morning runs, not vacations. She was quiet, composed, and utterly ignored by the others as they compared gear, laughed, and flexed in the mirrors lining the gym's check-in hallway. "Sweetheart?" The dispatcher orientations next door. One of the recruits chuckled as she walked by. Erin didn't respond. She didn't need to. Inside the registration area, Lieutenant Brett Donnelly, the lead instructor, and a man who prided himself on breaking the weak and building the rest, stood with a clipboard in hand. His eyes narrowed when he spotted Erin. "You lost, ma'am?" he asked, loud enough for the others to snicker. "No, sir. Erin Callahan, here for SWAT selection." Donnelly raised an eyebrow. "That's so." He glanced at the paperwork, lips curling. "Age 36. Previous experience? Logistics? No tactical units listed?" Erin offered no additional clarification. Donnelly snorted and called out to the room, "All right, boys. Looks like HR sent us their quarterly diversity project. Let's not break her too fast." Laughter echoed off the walls. Erin stood still, her eyes unreadable. They led the group outside to the obstacle yarder, brutal combination of walls, ropes, mud, and weighted dummies designed to weed out anyone less than elite. Donnelly stood at the front, barking orders. "Today's just a warm-up. Let's see who can hang. We'll start with a gear drag and sprint combo grab your packs." As Erin stepped toward her assigned kit, a male recruit accidentally bumped into her, sending her bag flying and its contents spilling onto the ground. A flash of something metallic glinted in the sooner, small, weathered token pinned discreetly inside her pack. She quickly tucked it away as the snickers rose again. "Oops, my bad," the man muttered with a smirk. "Maybe let her borrow a Barbie backpack next time," someone added. Donnelly leaned on the railing above them, arms crossed. "Better pick that up fast, Callahan. The clock's running. Or maybe you'd rather sit this one out and file the after-action reports." Again, Erin said nothing. She knelt, collected her gear, and rose. But the quiet way she adjusted the straps with practiced efficiency, the calm in her fingers, the way she instinctively checked the frame tension before hoisting it onto her back, it caught the eye of one of the senior instructors. Just for a moment, his amusement faltered. They moved through the first drill. Most recruits grunted and stumbled, their breaths ragged in the rising heat. Erin kept her pace. Her breathing stayed controlled. She didn't surge forward, didn't lag behind. She moved like someone who had done this before, someone who understood rhythm, not brute force. But none of that stopped Donnelly from shouting as she reached the finish last by only a second. "Dead last, Callahan. What do we think, fellas? Should we start a new category? Most graceful stroll?" More laughter. Erin stood, sweating but silent. Later that afternoon, during a weapons familiarization test, the instructor handed her a standard-issue Glock 17. He watched her closely, expecting a fumble. She broke it down and reassembled it in under 14 seconds faster than any of the previous candidates. The instructor blinked. "Where'd you learn that?" Erin just gave a half smile. "I read the manual." That night, in the common dorms, her bunk was accidentally moved into the laundry area. A note taped to the cot read, "Special accommodations for special snowflakes." She didn't react. She didn't move it back either. She simply laid out her sleeping mat on the floor beside the industrial washer, tied her boots, and went to sleep. By the end of day one, everyone thought they had her figured out. The quiet, older recruit who didn't fight back, didn't complain, and clearly wasn't cut out for this. They had no idea they'd just provoked the wrong woman. Something about her didn't add up. By the end of the second day, a few of the sharper recruits stopped laughing. They weren't ready to admit it, but Erin Callahan was doing something none of them could explain. She wasn't dominating the drills, but she wasn't cracking either. And no matter how much the instructors dialed up the pressure, she didn't flinch. On the third morning, Lieutenant Donnelly announced the start of room-clearing drills. "Pair up," he barked, then turned to Erin. You'll run solo." A few guys chuckled. What's she gonna do? Talk the suspects down? The exercise was designed to simulate high-pressure entry adrenaline, heavy, disorienting, full of split-second decisions. Mistakes here meant failure. Most rookies moved with hesitation or too much noise. Erin didn't. When the buzzer sounded, she advanced into the mocked-up apartment like water, quiet, fluid, methodical. One of the instructors leaned in, whispering to Donnelly, "That's advanced pacing." "She's probably watched a few movies," Donnelly replied, but his tone lacked its usual venom. Erin cleared the room with perfect trigger discipline, minimal motion, and every target neutralized. She didn't celebrate. She simply reset her weapon and stepped aside for the next candidate. Later that afternoon, while the others were slumped on benches trying to catch their breath after weighted stair runs, Erin disappeared behind the gym. One of the younger recruits, curious now more than cruel, followed her discreetly. She wasn't resting. She was running sprints uphill alone. "Who is she?" he whispered to himself. Word started to travel, quietly, reluctantly, not out of admiration but confusion. A few instructors began reviewing her file again. No tactical units listed, logistics, no disciplinary marks, good references, but vague. Too vague. That night, Sergeant Craig, one of the training coordinators, asked her directly during mess. "You don't talk much." "I listen more than I speak," she said evenly. "You former military?" She paused. "I've served." He didn't press further. Something in her voice suggested boundaries, and Craig had seen enough veterans try to leave things buried, but still, he made a note to ask around. The shift in tone was subtle but growing. Even Donnelly, who took pride in pushing candidates to their limits, had begun to run out of creative ways to rattle her. He made her repeat a physical exam twice because the timer malfunctioned. Her water bottle mysteriously disappeared during a ruck march. Her locker was found emptied one morning, its contents dumped in the restroom trash. Erin cleaned it up, refolded her gear, and said nothing. She wasn't fighting the system head-on. She was absorbing it, repurposing its weight into fuel. That kind of resilience made people uncomfortable. It also made them curious. On the 5th day, the squad hit the range for live-fire drills. Accuracy was the name of the game. Most recruits barely passed the minimum hit ratio. Erin stepped up last. Her stance was almost boring standard grip, no flourish. But when she started firing, everything changed. 10 shots, 10 hits, 2 double taps in under a second, 1 bullseye from the far corner stall that the instructor hadn't even expected anyone to use. The range fell quiet. "You done this before?" Sergeant Craig asked, checking her grouping. "Once or twice," she replied, and walked off. That night, she opened the small metal box under her bunk, careful not to let anyone see inside. Inside was a photograph 3 soldiers in full tactical gear, faces dusty, smiles worn. She touched one of the faces gently with her fingers. "Hey," someone called behind her. It was the recruit who had tripped her on day 1. His voice wasn't mocking this time. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" Erin closed the box. "I had good teachers." The next morning, a rumor floated through the hallway. Someone had pulled a name search. There was a mention buried deep in a military marksmanship database, a citation for exceptional field accuracy. But no attached rank, no unit, just initials. EC. Some of the instructors began to suspect more than logistics. During lunch, Donnelly slammed his tray down in front of her. "You think you're proving something?" She met his eyes for the first time all week. "Not to you." He didn't have a comeback. That afternoon, during a team maneuver simulation, Erin spotted a flaw in the layout of the training area. A shadowed corner that violated line-of-sight protocol, something no one else had noticed. She flagged it. The lead instructor stopped, surprised. "You're right," he muttered. "That's a blind spot. Good catch." He didn't thank her, but the acknowledgement lingered. By the end of week 1, the tone had shifted. The jokes were quieter. The glares became glances. And more than a few people had stopped seeing her as the quota candidate. They still didn't know who she was. But they were beginning to realize she wasn't here to prove she belonged. She was here to show them how much they had missed by assuming she didn't. It all came to a head on qualification day. The recruits, now whittled down from 24 to 12, stood on the shooting range, sweat dripping under the Texas sun. The final test had arrived. The Advanced Live Fire Stress Course, a brutal gauntlet of physical strain, speed shooting, and precision decision-making under fatigue. Chief Training Officer Donnelly stood with arms crossed, a cruel smirk playing across his face. He turned to the group. "We brought in a new format this year, custom designed by some friends from the military special operations community. You'll face multiple moving targets, distance variation, stress simulation, and a live clock. This test separates the real operators from the keyboard warriors." Then he looked directly at Erin. "Let's see if the librarian can shoot under pressure." The first few candidates performed admirably, some hitting their marks, some crumbling under the physical load. Then it was Erin's turn. She stepped forward silently, eyes on the course layout. A low hum of anticipation moved through the crowd. Even the instructors leaned in now. No one was laughing anymore. Not today. Erin adjusted the tactical vest on her shoulders, tightened the straps, then paused. Slowly, she reached beneath her collar and pulled out a small leather cord. At its end was a dull metal koino larger than a dog, tag-worn with age and etched with 3 faded stars. Without a word, she kissed it and tucked it back under her shirt. It was a small gesture, but it hit like thunder. Sergeant Craig's expression shifted. "I've seen one of those before," he muttered to another instructor. "Where?" "5th Special Forces Group. That's a marksmanship challenge coin. They don't give those out for participation." The buzzer sounded. Erin moved. Her first 3 shots landed center mass in less than 4 seconds. She flowed between stations like a shadow, no wasted movement, no hesitation. From standing to prone to kneeling, her transitions were clean, efficient, practiced. She handled the jammed mag at Station 3 with the calm of a surgeon, clearing it with one hand while repositioning behind a barrier. The instructors stopped taking notes. They just stared. At the final station, a target popped up at 40 yards farther than any other shot on the course. Erin raised her Glock and fired a single round. Dead center. The range went silent. The timer flashed. Record broken. 13:48. Accuracy, 100%. Not a single instructor spoke. Not even Donnelly. Sergeant Craig broke the silence. Where the hell did she learn to shoot like that? Erin calmly ejected her magazine, locked the slide back, and reholstered her weapon. Then, turning toward the stunned line of officers, she answered clear, calm, and unmistakable. "Army marksmanship instructor, 5th Special Forces Group support. I spent 6 years training the people who designed this course." Someone dropped a clipboard. One of the recruits actually gasped. Donnelly took a step forward, face pale. "Why didn't you say something?" Erin met his eyes evenly. "Because I was told this program tests performance, not resumes." He had no answer. Chief Donovan, the department's director who had quietly arrived during the qualification round, stepped forward. He had been skeptical of Erin's inclusion from the start. But now, even he seemed caught off guard. "That coin?" he said, his voice low. "You earned it?" Erin nodded. "During my second deployment, 3 soldiers trapped during a hillside ambush. I held position for 7 hours so they could get out." A hush fell over the training yard. Sergeant Craig cleared his throat. "We reviewed your file. It didn't mention any of that." She nodded. "The file reflected what the department wanted. I submitted the rest. It's not my fault no one read it." In that moment, the silence wasn't just respect, it was shame. They hadn't just underestimated her. They had never even tried to understand her. That evening, footage of the qualification round leaked to internal channels, then to the media. By morning, the headline blazed across local news. "Former military marksman breaks SWAT record, silences doubters." Reporters dug into her history. Commendations, valor awards, quiet commendations from military brass. No social media, no ego, just service. At City Hall, council members who had quietly pushed for her removal now demanded public recognition. Donnelly, red-faced and furious, tried to downplay it all in front of senior brass. She manipulated the process. She hid who she was. But Chief Donovan cut him off. "We just didn't bother to look deeper." A week later, During the official SWAT induction ceremony, Erin stood beside her fellow graduates. Donnelly didn't present her certificate. Sergeant Craig did his handshake firm, his voice steady. "You didn't just pass the course," he said quietly. "You reset the bar." That night, Donnelly was reassigned to desk duty in internal logistics. No announcement. No ceremony. Just silence. Exactly how Erin preferred it. The next few weeks passed quietly, but nothing was the same. Erin Callahan wasn't a mystery anymore. She was a name spoken in hallways with respect sometimes, or sometimes unease. The woman who shattered records, exposed biases, and did it all without raising her voice. But Erin wasn't interested in glory. She declined interview requests. She refused to sit for department PR campaigns. She didn't want her story turned into a banner headline. What mattered wasn't the recognition. It was the shift. One morning, Captain Harris, the highest-ranking female officer in the department, found Erin reviewing blueprints of the training facility. Erin had highlighted several areas with red ink. "What's all this?" Harris asked. "Flaws," Erin said simply. "Blind corners, narrow choke points, inadequate breach coverage." "You're redesigning the drills?" "I'm proposing something better, not just harder, smarter." Captain Harris studied the layout, then looked at Erin. "You want to lead the new marksmanship program?" Erin shook her head. "Number, I want to train alongside them, not above them." "Why?" "Because if I take that title now, I'll always be the woman expert, the exception. I want to earn space where I'm just another operatorno modifiers attached." Captain Harris smiled. "You're not like anyone I've met." "I'm not trying to be," Erin replied. "I'm trying to make sure the next woman doesn't have to fight this hard just to be taken seriously." It wasn't long before her quiet work turned into real reform. Without fanfare, the department adopted her suggested changes to the training curriculum. Officers, male and female, benefited from it. No credit was given publicly. Erin didn't ask for any. She launched an off-the-books mentorship circle for female recruits interested in tactical roles. It wasn't advertised. It spread by word-of-mouth whispers in locker rooms, quiet emails from rookies asking, "Can I talk to you?" Erin always said yes. In one session, a nervous young recruit barely 23 struggled with her rifle stance. Frustrated, tears threatening, she muttered, "Maybe I'm just not built for this." Erin knelt beside her, adjusted the recruit's footing gently, then said, "The hardest thing you'll ever have to shoot through is doubt, but it doesn't shoot back. You do." The recruit hit her next 3 shots dead center. A month later, Chief Donovan walked into one of Erin's sessions unannounced. He watched silently as 6 women ran coordinated breach drills with technical fluency that rivaled the veteran teams. Afterward, he pulled her aside. "Some officers are concerned this mentorship is giving them unfair advantage." Erin didn't blink. "You're welcome to watch every session. I'm not teaching them to lower the standard. I'm teaching them to exceed it." He had no reply, but 2 weeks later, the department's official training manual quietly included pages based on her methods. No credit given, no credit needed. Then came her first live operation. A hostage situation downtown. 10 civilians trapped in an office tower by a disgruntled ex-employee armed with a rifle and explosives. As the team reviewed building schematics, Erin noticed something the others missed: a maintenance corridor, unlisted on public plans, that provided flank access to the shooter's position. She flagged it quietly to the team leader. He hesitated. "Why not take the route yourself?" he asked. "Because I can cover both choke points from the elevator shaft. Let Davis go around. He's faster in confined spaces." The plan worked flawlessly. The suspect surrendered. No shots fired, no injuries. During debrief, the captain nodded toward Erin. Her tactical reads saved lives. That's the kind of assessment we all train for. There were no slow claps, no dramatic speeches. But in the silence that followed, she knew she was no longer an outsider. She was SWAT. Weeks turned into months, and gradually, other departments began to call. "Do you have room for one more female candidate? Can she train with Erin?" Word had spread far beyond Austin. One Friday afternoon, as she packed up gear, a rookie nervously approached her. "I've read about you," the woman said. "People say you broke the system." Erin paused, then shook her head gently. "No," she replied. "I didn't break it. I outlasted it. That's different." She reached for her medallion, now worn openly around her neck, the same one she had once kept hidden in her pocket. "It belonged to a friend," she said. "She died in combat because her unit wasn't trained properly. Every time I help someone move better, shoot smarter, lead stronger, I'm keeping her with me." The rookie swallowed hard. "Does it ever get easier?" Erin smiled faintly. But you get stronger, and then you make it easier for the next one." That night, Erin walked alone past the same training course where she had once been mocked, challenged, and dismissed. She stopped briefly at the 40-yard mark, the spot of her final shot. There, nailed into the wooden barrier, was a small plaque. It had been placed without ceremony, without announcement. Record holder, EC, 1348, 100%. No fanfare, just fact. She didn't need to touch it. She turned, boots crunching against the gravel, and walked off into the quiet. True power doesn't need applause. It just needs consistency. Greatness doesn't scream. It walks through fire and lets the silence speak. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. Would you have the courage to be underestimated, ridiculed, and doubted just to open the door for someone you may never meet?